Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the pre-application meeting for clean diesel funding programs. Since we are doing this meeting in webinar and not meeting form, you'll be on mute throughout the presentation. So if you have any questions, please type them into the chat window of the GoToWebinar screen. You can also later email questions in by February 18th, and we'll provide an answer to those questions by the 22nd. And forward to everyone on here and post them to our website. I will now begin. Our agenda for the next 30 minutes to an hour is to give you an overview of the request for applications and quickly review certain administrative conditions and take a detailed look at application documents, then take your questions in Q&A. Next. Here's the timeline for the RFP. Of note here is the questions are due in by February 18th, and the RFA itself is due by March 4th. This request for applications is intended to select beneficiaries to receive funding to implement clean diesel projects. Projects are limited to alternative fuel engine and vehicle replacements and/or electrified parking spaces that will achieve significant reductions in pollution emitted from your current diesel engines. Successful applicants will become beneficiaries under projects managed by Metropolitan Energy Center and funded by EPA's National Clean Diesel Program. With this RFA, MEC will select new beneficiaries for current MEC managed projects, as well as for an application to EPA for new funds under the open fiscal year 21 National Clean Diesel Grant Competition. Projects will replace, repower, or reduce emissions from diesel vehicles class 5 through 8, including school buses. While other outcomes are allowed by some clean diesel programs, proposals to MEC are limited to alternative fuel engine or vehicle replacements using EPA verified engine technologies and/or electrified parking spaces. The geographic scope of selected projects will be limited to Kansas and Western Missouri, with some consideration for projects based in other areas of EPA Region 7, and that is Eastern Missouri, Iowa, and Nebraska. If a beneficiary opts for new propane or CNG models or new diesel models that will be powered by biodiesel, reimbursements may be up to 25% of total replacement cost. If a beneficiary opts for optional carb near zero engines for CNG or propane, the reimbursement is up to 35%. If a beneficiary opts for zero emission electric vehicles, the reimbursement rate is up to 45%, which can also apply to limited electrical charging installation costs as necessary for the new EVs. Truck stop electrification and/or electrified parking spaces projects are eligible for reimbursement up to 30% of labor and equipment costs. The federal funding allocated for clean diesel awards and new applications is approximately $2.5 million. Cost sharing commitments by applicants are required, from 55 to 75% of project costs depending on technology deployed. As an example, a project to replace a diesel transit bus with an electric bus and install necessary charging equipment may cost a total of $500,000. The top reimbursement rate would be 45% or $225,000. The applicant cost sharing would be therefore be 25 or 55% or $275,000. Applicants willing to forego some funding, for instance, asking for 40% reimbursement instead of 45%, will improve their chances of selection, though it cannot guarantee success. MEC anticipates making 3 to 5 awards depending on RFA responses and funding availability. Individual project awards are limited only by available funds. Available federal funds are $1.3 million for current projects and $1,250,000 for a new application to EPA for approximately $2.5 million altogether. MEC reserves the right not to award any applicants or to offer partial funding to applications. The anticipated time for selection of the winning applicants will be early March. These funds are provided through EPA grants to MEC and will be administered by MEC in accordance with applicable EPA rules and requirements. Funding will be provided on a reimbursement basis. Costs incurred by beneficiaries during the application process are ineligible for reimbursement. Again, the geographic scope of selected projects will be limited to Kansas and Western Missouri, with some consideration for projects based in other areas of EPA Region 7. New or upfit AFEs must be powered by compressed natural gas, propane, biodiesel, or electricity. Vehicles being replaced or upfit must be Class 5 to 8 diesel vehicles. Eligible categories include, but are not limited to, school or transit buses, terminal trucks, work trucks, trash haulers, short haul delivery trucks, and long haul freight tractors. Other restrictions apply also. Applicants cannot use clean diesel funding to enlarge a fleet or for funding fueling infrastructure, except for limited electricity or electric charging support or electrified parking spaces. All units being replaced under this program must be destroyed, and there are specific requirements on how scrapping is to be done, such as photographs, invoices, and specified scrapping methods. Any income from scrapping old units will reduce the amount of funding beneficiaries receive in the reimbursement. Old units must be scrapped within 90 days from the date that replacement vehicles are placed in service. Non-diesel vehicles or equipment are not eligible for replacement. Diesel vehicles and engines ranging from engine model year 1994 to 2009 are eligible for replacement or upfit under different duty cycles. If you plan to replace diesel vehicles newer than engine model year 2010, they must be replaced with zero emission or near zero or electric models. Here's a graph that summarizes eligible vehicle and engine replacements based on engine year model, and you can find this on the RFA link for future reference. To ensure the planned replacement or upfit is certified and eligible for use under these funds, visit California Air Resources Board online. Search for engine family names listed by engine model year, class, and equipment manufacturer. And this can be accessed at the link below. You'll want to download the resulting certificate to use as an attachment with your application. And lastly, new vehicles must perform substantially the same work as the units they replace and have substantially the same horsepower and displacement. The principal goal of this project is to select beneficiaries to implement alternative fuel engine and vehicle replacements and/or electrified parking spaces that will achieve significant reductions in pollutions emitted from diesel engines. Projects that cut diesel emissions in areas of poor air quality or where emissions negatively impact low-income communities are a priority for DERA programs. Similarly, projects eliminate diesel emissions from school bus fleets in favor of cleaner fuel models reflect DERA priorities and will be assessed accordingly. Projects on the leading edge of technology development and that encourage innovation by service providers and regional peers are encouraged. Also, data captured and lessons learned is an important goal. These will be leveraged into project success stories and shared throughout our business and community relationships using the target outreach and educational peer-to-peer presentations. Together, deployments and outreach will encourage adoption of increased numbers of alternative fuel vehicles. The long-term benefits and outcomes will include first, reduction of NOx, particulate matter, and other air pollutions, and encouraging expanded use of cleaner alternative fuels and vehicles with the goal of moving towards an increasingly self-sustaining regional alt-fuel market. Beneficiaries are expected to work with their associated clean cities coalitions to maintain their alternative fuel deployments long-term and to provide information to MEC on fuel consumed and emissions eliminated through these projects. For evaluation of applications, all applications will be reviewed by a review committee consisting of MEC staff and other members offering technical evaluations and assistance as necessary. Applicants will be notified if additional information or documentation is required. Any additional information pertaining to submissions, including email and phone calls, will not be considered once the review process is underway. When evaluating projects for funding, the review committee will consider the following criteria. First, there is cost effectiveness, which is the cost sharing percentage. And remember, the lower the percentage helps. And this will be worth up to 40 points. Then clean fuel reduce, or the fuel volume displaced, and that'll be up to 25 points. The operating geography, where projects in Kansas or Missouri rank higher than the ones that will be in either Iowa or Nebraska, and that'll be up to 20 points total. Then duty cycle, and with school bus and transit buses ranked the highest, and that can be up to 10 points. And lastly, outreach participation is up to 5 points. And all this is for a total of 100 points. Next slide, please. Next, we are doing the pre-application meeting now. So with questions, you can type in the chat box on here, or we'll try to answer today, and I'll try to answer today. Or you are also encouraged to submit questions in writing to myself at Metropolitan Energy Center at rfp.metroenergy.org by February 18th. And on the application or on stuff, it shows RFP, and you can also submit to RFA at metroenergy.org, and either one will get the application to us. We will try to respond to all questions publicly via FAQ on our website by February 22nd. An email should use the subject line query for Dear RFA. Applications must be received by March 4th, and MEC is not responsible for technical or transmittal issues when submitting a grant application. All applications with an MEC inbox timestamp of 2 p.m. Central Standard Time or after will automatically be disqualified from current funding round with no exceptions. Only electronic applications will be accepted. Hard copy applications will not be accepted. Please email your application again to either RFP or RFA metroenergy.org with the subject line Clean Diesel Funding Programs and then your company name. Here are the application documents you'll need for submission. First, the application form, then the budget table with a fleet worksheet, then letters of commitment for applicant and any cost sharing partners. And lastly, letters of support, which are optional and are for non-cost sharing community partners or supporters. Now we'll look at the administrative conditions for application and award. Applicants are required to provide their federal EIN or EIN and DUNS numbers in their application. With administrative matters, up first is confidential information. Any restrictions on the use or inspection of materials contained within the application shall be clearly stated in the application itself. Written requests by the applicant for confidentiality shall be submitted to MEC in advance of the application submission online, along with the application material. The applicant must state specifically what elements of the application are to be considered confidential or proprietary. Confidential or proprietary information must be clearly identified, marked, and separated and packaged from the rest of the application. Co-mingling of confidential and other information is not acceptable. Neither an application in its entirety nor application price information will be considered confidential and proprietary. Any information that will be included in the resulting agreement cannot be considered confidential. Regarding organizational conflict of interest, no person or business entity engaged by MEC to prepare the original grant application or who has access prior to the solicitation to sensitive information related to this procurement process, including but not limited to requirements, statements of work, and evaluation criteria, will be eligible to directly or indirectly submit or participate in the submission of an application for this grant solicitation. MEC has the right to retain applicants' original applications and other RFA response materials for its files. An application submitted in response to this RFA shall constitute a binding offer. Your organization cannot presently be debarred, suspended, proposed for debarment, declared ineligible, or voluntarily excluded from covered transactions by any federal department or agency. This also applies to state, local, and other governmental agencies. All statistical and fiscal information contained within this RFA and any amendments and modifications thereto reflect the best and most accurate information available to MEC at the time of RFA preparation. MEC is not liable for any costs incurred by the applicant prior to issuance of a legally executed agreement, purchase orders, or other authorized acquisition documents. Successful applicants or the beneficiary shall comply with applicable federal, state, and local laws and regulations in the performance of all work under resulting agreement. Beneficiary shall obtain all federal, state, and local permits, authorizations, and approvals of all work performed under the agreement. This includes a governing grant agreement between MEC and EPA. Successful applicants who complete a contract agreement will be considered beneficiary of the grant. Beneficiary will manage and expend funding to maximize these benefits, including commencing expenditures and activities as quickly as possible, consistent with prudent management. Contract planning, evaluation, and award to vendors will be required to align with the program's core goal as stated above. MEC's evaluation will be based in part on how the application positively achieves each of the goals. Again, additional information may be requested from applicants by MEC prior to final award determination. MEC is under no obligation to fund any application and reserves the right to deny applications for any reason. Funding is limited. Applications meeting all the program's general policy guidelines may not necessarily receive an award. MEC reserves the right to delay any decision due to budgetary constraints. MEC reserves the right to vary from the evaluation criteria listed within this document during the bid solicitation period as necessary or appropriate. Any modifications to evaluation criteria will be posted on MEC's website. It is the responsibility of the applicant to check for these changes. The selection notices are anticipated to be made in early March of 2021, and applicants will be notified of the review committee's determinations via email. Awardees are expected to sign and return the agreement to MEC within 4 weeks of receiving the documents, unless otherwise noted in writing by the MEC contract specialist. Funding decisions are final. Funds awarded are based on a competitive process where applications are weighed against the other applications and overall program goals. Changes unapproved by MEC to an awarded applicant scope of work after funds are awarded will not be allowed and may result in the nullification of the award. With project impacts and reporting, all funding is conditioned upon veracity of information provided within the application and will require accountability and reporting by the successful applicant or the beneficiary. Such reporting will be in accordance with the procedures developed and prescribed by MEC. MEC staff will also conduct periodic site visits during and after installation to ensure compliance with the agreement. The following reporting requirements will be included in MEC's agreement with the beneficiary. On progress reporting, beneficiary will participate in monthly status calls with other project participants. In addition, it will submit on a quarterly basis a written progress report of activities under the grant. The report will refer to the status of work to be performed pursuant to this grant, including a description of the deliverables and tasks completed during the reporting period. Beneficiary will produce and submit to MEC a project completion report that provides a technical account of the total work performed and contains a comprehensive description of the work tasks specified therein, the results achieved, and documenting the successes, lessons learned, and technology implementation of the project, and shall include a financial summary outlining expenditures. Through the life of the project, beneficiary will track performance metrics of the deployed and installed equipment, including fuel volume used and/or dispensed, successes and problems encountered, and lessons learned. Compliance with all local building and operational codes is just demonstrated by a signed permit or similar from the local authority having jurisdiction is required for construction activities. With annual reporting after the project concludes and through the life of the vehicles and/or deployed installed equipment, the beneficiary will track and report to MEC on an annual basis performance metrics of the deployed and installed equipment, including fuel volume used and/or dispensed, and successes and problems encountered and lessons learned. Beneficiary must also maintain equipment on property registry, provide deposition information to MEC, and allow MEC access on at least a biannual basis to verify equipment through site visits until such time as the equipment has a fair market value of less than $5,000. With payments, the following payment procedures will be included in MEC's agreement with the awarded applicant. Payments must be made in accordance with the provisions set forth in the grant. MEC will pay beneficiary the reasonable, allocable, and allowable costs for equipment installed based on satisfactory monthly progress and required documentation of the work defined in the grant, as determined by MEC. The beneficiary will be compensated only for equipment installed by the beneficiary and accepted by MEC pursuant to the terms of the grant. Payment will also be contingent upon MEC's timely receipt and acceptance of the required report documents described therein. The beneficiary will be reimbursed on the submission of the request for payment and an invoicing report form provided by MEC. It will provide a detailed account of the costs, include receipts and invoices, proofs of payment to vendors, and proof of scrap equipment when required. MEC will withhold payment of the final 10% of the total amount until the beneficiary has submitted and MEC has accepted all required narrative and financial progress reports enumerated in the grant and agreement. Now I'll walk through the application forms. On the application, again, it needs to be submitted by March 4th at 2 p.m. Under applicant, fill in out your company information requested, including your DUNS and FEIN numbers, plus fill in the information requested on your authorized official and project manager. Under B, project summary, or number 4 here, total project cost should equal the sum of the cost share and the requested funding for all projects components. This is not just for the federal funds requested. On number 5, enter the anticipated month when truck deployment will be completed. With number 6, enter the total number of vehicles you are including on the application for replacement or remanufacture. On number 7, enter a brief description or a brief summary of your proposed project. Include any relevant information about your proposed project that is not provided in any other application fields. And in section 8, number 8, or section C, number 8, sign and date in the signature field to certify that the statements and information provided in the application are true and accurate. By signing and dating, the applicant agrees to provide the required documentation and insurance necessary for funding. Under D, projects details, on number 9, check all that apply. Indicate whether you want to replace a diesel vehicle, replace or upgrade a diesel engine, or install electrified parking spaces. On number 10, check all that apply. Indicate that what duty cycle your project operates. If none of the options applies, enter a short description, for example, Class 8, utility, or work truck. On number 11, enter a short description of the job the affected vehicles do on your job site. And on number 12, enter a % of operating time the vehicle you want to replace or remanufacture spends in each county area listed. Operating time should total 100%. Number 13, state availability for peer networking and panel presentations to peers and industry in the region and or nationally. Also state limitations on your availability to participate. And lastly, on number 14, briefly discuss ways in which you plan to enhance project sustainability. Priority may be given to projects where applicants can explain and demonstrate their ability to keep cutting emissions after the project ends. Possible approaches include the project's inclusion into broader-based environmental or air quality plan, and the implementation of idle reduction policies, plans for additional deployments of cleaner air fuels and vehicles, or a documented commitment to continue to identify and address air quality issues in the affected community. On the budget award amounts, applicant must include the full budget for the project, regardless of the amount of requested funds. This will include the actual cost of the new truck, or for the remanufacture, the actual cost of preparing the chassis, the new engine configuration parts, and the labor necessary to uninstall the old engine and install the new. This also includes the cost of charging infrastructure associated with any new all-electric engines or vehicles if required. For all projects, fill out the fleet data sheet to populate the budget table in the required Excel document attachment. There is an instruction tab to help you do this. Additional assistance can be requested through me. I'll refer you to our designated clean diesel staff member if that happens. Awardees will be eligible for a reimbursement of up to 25% of total vehicle cost to replace diesel vehicles, including school buses with new propane or CNG models using EPA verified engine technologies. If the sub-awardee opts for the optional carb, near zero engine, or for CNG or propane, the reimbursement is 35%. If a sub-awardee opts for zero emissions electric vehicles, the reimbursement rate is up to 45%, which also can apply to limited electrical charging and installation costs necessary for the new EVs. It is necessary to collect information on the vehicles that will be repowered or replaced. Look for the current vehicle information section where you will fill out the information requested for each group of vehicles. For electrified parking spaces or truck stop electrification, detailed unit information such as VIN numbers, it is not necessary, but you must provide estimated information that represents the average population of vehicles that will be using the electrified spaces. And now find the new vehicle upgrade information section. Fill in the information requested for each group of vehicles. For EPS or TSE, once again, provide average information for the population of vehicles served. For the upgrade cost per unit, EPS, TSE proposals are encouraged to include all costs in a lump sum in the installation labor cost field. In fact, TSE or EPS proposals are encouraged to request assistance to ensure the planned budget is reflected accurately on the summary tab. Okay, with scrapping again, all vehicles being replaced under this program must be destroyed. And there are specific requirements on how scrapping is to be done, again, with photographs, invoices, and scrapping methods. Any income from scrapping old units will reduce the amount of funding beneficiaries receive in reimbursement. For the worksheet, show the following: the vendor, cost of sale on each transaction, the number of units, the estimated sale amount of each unit, and the program income totals. Well, that concludes the formal part of the presentations. We'll now see if there's any questions submitted. And Kelly, do you see if there's any questions?
We did have a couple of questions, Jeff. I went ahead and answered them in the question box. So I think I sent the questions out to everyone, but I'll repeat them here. One was a request for the slide of the deadline dates, and I used the opportunity to remind people that if they visit the application, the RFA web page, those important dates are presented along with links to download other resources and documents that are necessary to complete an application. The other question was regarding on-road equipment versus off-road equipment. And my response to that is that we would consider motive off-road equipment, provided that the replacement or repower would be powered by an alternative fuel or zero emission alternative, and that it meets all other eligibility requirements. And I will say that if we find we need to answer this question differently after further review, once this presentation is over, we will update our response on the RFA webpage with the Q&A section, as well as in our email to today's participants.
Okay, and we'll give you another minute or so if anybody else has any quick questions. And again, like Kelly said, we'll be taking questions to the 18th, and we'll be posting them on our website. And we'll be sending out this webinar to everybody on here.
And I'm currently not seeing any further questions in the chat window or the questions box.
Okay. So again, it'll be presentation will be available online. The requests for applications are due by March 4th. And also to let you know, our other RFP out there we have is for alternative fuel vehicles. If you're not aware of that, you can visit our website, and that one is due on February 19th.
We do have
So,
one further question, Jeff.
okay.
Question is there a dollar efficiency, or I'm interpreting this question, is there a $/NOx standard or goal set for the program? Don't know whether this is a cost efficiency question or if it's related to flat goals for dollars or NOx. And the quick answer to that question, regardless of which direction it's coming from, is that no, we did not set a standard or a goal for this program, mainly because we aren't entirely sure what sorts of responses we're going to get. But I will say that, remind everyone that the evaluation criteria sets cost efficiency and emissions reductions as its highest priority.
Okay, thank you. And if we have no more questions, again, feel free to send them in before the 19th or the 18th, and we'll get back to you. And again, we'll post these on the website. So I'd like to thank you for joining our webinar, and have a good day.
And thanks to everyone. One last question here that I'm just received is, would you consider replacement propane buses being years prior to 2019 engines? And I suggest that that questioner send that response through email to rfp@metroenergy.org. We'll look this up, and I think we will have further clarification on that. The broad response that I'll give is that we are working across several DARA projects that we have received funding for, and which have had projects withdraw from the programs that were funded. And so we're replacing projects from across several different DARA program years. What that means is that there are different eligibility thresholds, and our staff during the review process will take those into consideration. So there are opportunities for older vehicles, and it depends on what types of responses we get. Again, we'll be looking for the biggest lifetime reductions as our main criterion. And I'm not seeing any further questions in the chat or questions box.
Okay, thanks again for attending, and this now concludes the presentation.